محمد وآل
الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
محمد وآل
تنزيل الكتاب من الله العزيز العليم. غافر الذنب بقابل التوب شديد العقاب ذو الطول لا إله إلا هو لا إله إلا هو إليه المصير. ما يجادل في آيات الله إلا الذين كفروا فلا يغرك تقلبهم في البلاد. كذبت قبلهم قوم نوح والأحزاب من بعدهم وهمت كل أمة برسولهم يأخذوه وجادلوا بالباطل ليدحضوا به الحق فأخذتهم فكيف كان عقاب. وكذلك حقت كلمة ربك على الذين كفروا أنهم أصحاب النار. الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم. ربنا وادخلهم جنات عدن التي وعدتهم ومن صلح من آبائهم وأزواجهم وذرياتهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. صدق الله العلي العظيم.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
We have speech from 2 Sunday school students. Brother Mehdi is going to do his speech first. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. I'm going to recite a few sayings of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, crying out of fear of God, that is to be God conscious, is salvation from the fire. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, God elevates his servants for their patience and enduring difficulties. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, no man can reach the peak of intelligence except by following the righteousness. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, associating with corrupt people makes you subject to suspicion. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says, in your friend's absence, speak of him the way that you like him to speak of you in your absence. Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, "Do not try to find fault with others. Instead, when someone makes a mistake, cover up for him and justify his mistake." Imam Hussein says generosity is prosperity. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says moderation is wisdom. Imam Hussein alayhi salam says whoever sorts out a problem of a believer, God sorts out his difficulties of this world and the hereafter. Imam Hussein alayhi salam said, never raise your need except to three kinds of people: to a religious person, a brave person, or a noble person. Salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
For Brother Mehdi, one more loud salawat.
اللهم صل على
I will ask the sisters, please, if you can take your seats. Please, sisters, sit. If I can ask the sisters to say loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Please have a seat. We have a second student, Ali, who is going to give speech on Imam Hussein. Salawat.
Hello, my name is Ali, and tonight I'm going to read about Imam Hussein and his kindness, charity, and love for the poor. Imam Hussein alayhi salam is our third Imam. He was well known for his kindness, charity, and love for the poor. One day when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was riding through the streets of Medina, he came across some beggars who had gathered together to eat the food that they had begged for during the day. The beggars saw Imam Hussein alayhi salam and invited him to join them. Imam Hussein alayhi salam was not allowed to take anything given in charity as he was from the family of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Taking charity is forbidden for all members of the family, Ahlul Bayt, of the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Imam Hussein alayhi salam got off his horse and sat down with the beggars. Imam Hussein alayhi salam and then explained to them that although he would love to eat with them, he could not because as a member of the family of the Holy Prophet Muhammad, he could not take a charity. As an alternative, he invited all of the beggars to his house for food so that they could all eat together. Our third Imam, Imam Hussein alayhi salam, was a man of fight and action. During nights he worshipped Allah in privacy. While during the day he worked hard and guided the people. He was constantly mindful of the poor and the needy, and he used to visit them and cheer them up. He used to tell his followers, be always in touch with the needy, for Allah does not leave the arrogant. In following our Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we should always be kind to others, especially the poor. We should not compromise your beliefs for anyone, but at the same time we should be polite in how we tell them.
For the encouragement of our students, please one more salawat for our I will ask Brother Zulfar to please come and say Marcia while he is coming here. Our Sunday's blood drive, we have 32 slots, only 9 have been filled so far. So I request each one of you to please, give your name to Brother Asar so he can write down what time you would be donating blood, inshallah. Salawat.
पर मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सलावत बानो کرے اپنے لال کو جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو بانو کہاں تلاش زینب کے ساتھ روتی ہیں سب مل کے بیویاں جب دیکھتی تھی روز وہ وقت زوال کو بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے شبیر دل کو تھام کے غش کھا کے گر پڑے دیکھا جو خون غرق نبی کے جمال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر میرے پاس ہے صدقے کو بس یہی جھولے سلا کے دے دیا بانو نے لال کو بانو کہاں تلاش شبیر لا رہے ہیں میدان سے دیکھیے شبیر لا رہے ہیں میدان سے دیکھیے اپنے ضعیف کاندھوں پا 18 سال کو بانو کہاں تلاش بازار شام میں وہ اسیروں کا قافلہ عابد نہ بھول پائے کبھی اس خیال کو بانو کہاں تلاش لیلا دعائیں کرتی رہیں بعد کربلا یا رب جدا نہ کرنا کسی ماں سے لال کو بانو کہاں شبیر اپنے روزے پہ بلوائیں گے ضرور توقیر تو نکال دے دل سے ملال کو بانو کہاں تلاش کرے اپنے لال کو جنگل میں مار ڈالا ہے زہرا کی آل کو بانو کہاں تلاش پر محمد و آل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ
MashaAllah, Zulfikar bhai. This brother has asked me to just say, he wants to say just 4 lines about Imam Hussain.
I'm Farhad. 1,400 years ago, a man gave everything he had to save humanity. That man was Imam Hussain alayhi salam.
Salawat.
حسین تیرے نام حسین ہرش تک آباد رہے گا برباد تھا یزید وہ برباد رہے گا حسین تیرے خون کے ہر ایک قطرے سے گلشن میرے ایمان کا آباد رہے گا
Salawat. MashaAllah. So just one announcement before I ask the Maulana to come to member. On Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we would need volunteers to, bring Momineen from the Chippa school to here and then from there. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I put a list outside. If you can give your name, if you can volunteer 1 hour, 7:30 to 8:30. So I put a list there. If we can have few volunteers, that will help us, inshallah. So I will ask Maulana to come to a member with 3 of your loudest salawat.
نعرے تکبیر نعرے رسالہ نعرے حیدری بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم فقد قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وكونوا مع الصادقين. The verse number 119 from Surah Mubarakah At-Tawbah. O you who have believed, fear Allah and be with those who are true. Recite the second salawat. As we said, another salawat on the honor of our Imam Zaman, inshallah. And let's not forget about all of the past ones, all the marhumin, marhumat, and all those who are sick and desperately looking to us to our prayers, inshallah, by reciting a loud salawat followed by Surah Al-Fatiha. Dear brothers and sisters, respected scholars, Jamian, Salaam alaikum. Alhamdulillah, for the previous nights, we started talking about the reasons of attending the majalis of Abu Abdullah Hussain. We went to etiquettes of attending such majalis, and we start talking about this new whole set of lifestyle, or this way of living in which the Quran tells us that that is the actual, the true living. The general living that we see that, for example, it is, what is assumed based on the public, the Quran calls that a dead living, as if like a dead person is just living. Or we said the difference between existing and living, right? So we've been talking about this superior life for the previous nights. And we mentioned that the first step to actually get closer to this superior life is to actually start contemplating, start pondering on what? What was the answer on that one? To start pondering on, first and most of all, ourselves, right? Why? Because we said that as well, that number one, we have this part which we call the nafs. In English, most of the times they translate it to soul, right? And this soul that we have, it's so great, it has so many different levels, so many different aspects, that the more you actually contemplate on this soul, the closer you will get to its creator. Man arafa nafsa faqad arafa rabbah. And this is, as I said, it goes hand by hand. It's not like you have to first recognize or understand or get to know your soul, and then you're going to get to know your creator on the second step. No, the minute, the second, the very instant that you get to know yourself, for the very same instant you get to know your creator, because it's just there is no barrier in between, right? That's why in a lot of ayahs of the Quran, the Almighty tells us that He's closer to us than our veins of the neck, right? What can get closer to us than the veins of our neck, right? So these are all, of course, examples. These are metaphorical, examples. They're not actual, because a lot of people, they may actually assume that when the Quran says that means that there is another part between, for example, us and the vein, and God is somewhere there. Some people translate it to God being the blood, right? So they take it literally. No, we don't say that. We say this is a metaphoric example. It means that, this connection that we have with God, it is so close that there is nothing else between us, right? But then how come we don't feel it? Or how come we feel so distant a lot of times? So here comes the topic that God, there are two relationships here. One is from God to us. The second one is from us towards God. So when we talk about from Almighty to us, He's always close to us. He's always there. His mercy is always there. He's always there to hear us. His knowledge, His power, His life is always there, close to us, closer than we can even imagine. But when we talk about us towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's when the problem happens. Why? Because we tend to forget about Him. So once we tend to forget about Him, it's not Him that has gone to absence. It is us that we have turned ourselves away. So that's why they say if you actually open up your eyes, the mercy of Allah is everywhere. No matter which direction you look, you can actually see the signs of your Creator. Whichever directions you look, you can see, for example, different attributes, different names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in different creatures, right? But all of this goes back to that first step, that you have to concentrate, you have to focus, and you have to contemplate. If you do not have tafakkur, none of this stuff is going to just come to you at ease, right? So that was the very first step. Then we talk about that by doing this contemplation, the person is going to come up to this sort of true senses that he or she can distinguish between two different concepts. One being haqq, second one being batil. Truth and untruth. Reality versus unreality, right? But when we say truth, and then we define that as well, because we said a lot of people actually misuse this concept, right? And actually that's how the shaitan works. That's how a lot of kuffar actually work, right? They take part of the truth, right? They mix it up with unreality, and they present it as a whole truth. But that's not true, right? That's just partially right. And that's why we have to be a little bit smart about this in order to be able to distinguish, like, for example, the stuff I hear, the stuff I see, the stuff I listen to, what percentage of these are actually true and what percentage of it is, all those junk and addition that, is not going to have any benefits for me. So we have to get to that stage in order to be able to distinguish between haqq and batil in every sort of, intakes that we have. And the intakes that we have, it's different stuff. Sometimes it's from physical stuff, such as the food or the, for example, sounds that we hear, right? Sometimes it's through the eyes, the images we see, the movies we see, the people we see. Sometimes it's through by the people that we hang out with, right? The effects of people on each other. This is one of those that's very, very crucial, and you have to be very careful about that. They give this example. They say, imagine you're on a bus, right? You're going for a long journey, imagine, right? And then the person who's sitting next to you, he's a chain smoker, right? Chain smokers, they usually have this smell of cigarettes. No matter what they do, that smell doesn't go away, right? So imagine on the way, and he doesn't even smoke, as long as sitting next to you, he's a very ethical man, right? So he doesn't smoke when he's sitting next to you. Whenever bus stops, he goes out, it's a chain smoking, he has to smoke, right? So at the end of the travel, once you reach your destination, once you get off the bus, the first person who comes up to you, right? After saying salam and regards, what's the first thing they're going to say? Oh man, have you been smoking? Right? You haven't smoked. He hasn't smoked next to you. Just by sitting next to him, what has happened? The scent of smoking has been transferred to you. And this is just the physical part. Now imagine what happens when two souls actually get connected, right? When two spirits get connected. All this transformation of ilm, of qadra, of hayat, of all of it happens in an instant, right? So that's why they say one of the very important thing is that the people that you choose actually to hang out with. They say get to know the person by the people he or she hangs out with, right? Because you can see those commonality between all of them. Then you can see what are the characteristics that all of them have in common. Then you can tell what kind of personality that person has, right? It's not just going to happen out of the blue. So and you can say this, even not only about friends, even about the couples, right? Husband and wife. Like the longer they stay, with each other, the more alike they become, right? For example, once they live for quite some time, they say, you guys are talking alike. You guys, are behaving alike. You guys are liking the same stuff. The preferences becomes the same, right? The sentences, the expressions they use, right, becomes the same thing, right? Or if they are very close friends, you see the same thing. Sometimes they can actually read each other's mind. If it gets really the connection is very strong. They finish up each other's sentences. And this is what we see. So this is that connection between two different souls. It's not something physical, right? So that's why they say it's very, you have to be very careful on picking, for example, the person or the people that you want to hang out with. Now, after talking about this haqq and batil, talking about the signs or indications, criterions of the truth and batil, we want to go one more step forward. What's the next step? Now we recognized it, we acknowledged it, right? So now it comes three choices. You either go with it, you reject it, or you stay neutral, right? So they say when people actually encounter haqq, when you tell them the information, when you give them the proper information, when they get informed, when they acknowledge it, when they completely understand it, they get divided to three groups. They either accept it, right, and then they give in, or they reject it, or they stay neutral. So for tonight, I'm going to talk about these three different types of people, and we try to find some examples, in the tragedy of Karbala, among all those people that they either joined or they left. And you'll be surprised, a lot of interesting personalities. Now, before I start this one, between parentheses, right? When we talk about all this, for example, companions of Abu Abdullah, or on the contrary, on the enemies of Abu Abdullah, we always have to have this in our mind, that it doesn't mean by just analyzing their behavior, we are seeing ourselves any higher than them, right? Because a lot of times what happens, we start talking about a specific character in the history of Islam, right? But then we never raise this question that if I personally was in his shoes with all those stuff, how would I have behaved, right? For example, we talk a lot about Muawiyah and the leaders, right? So imagine if you're giving this chance, right? Without any corruption, you're giving this chance to govern over the entire Islamic nation, right? So you have all the power, you have all the money, right? At your fingertip. And then pretty much whatever you say, people are going to obey you. So then what are you going to do? One of my teachers, he was saying, in reality, everybody has a price. What does it mean? It's like, for example, we know riba, or riba is haram, right, in Islam. You don't take interest for, for work that has not been done. There has to be actually a work to be done in order for you to earn income, right? So riba is haram. But imagine if someone comes up to you, right, and then he offers you this very high percentage of riba. Sometimes it's 1%, sometimes it's 2%. So you're just going to say, I'm 1%, 2%. Allah is greater. I'm not going to, go with it. But imagine one person comes up to you and says, if you give me this money, I'm going to give it back to you with 100% interest every month. No, make it 200%, make it 300%, right? It goes up, then you start, thinking about it, considering. It's like every month. So maybe you start considering, if I give you $1,000, I'm going to get $1,000, right? Or no, on the opposite side, someone comes up to you and says, I'll give you, for example, $100 to do this sin, this act of crime. You're like, $100? No way. But he goes around and comes back and says, okay, I'll give you $1,000. Like, no, I love my faith, I'm stronger, I'm a Muslim, right? He comes like, I'll give you $100,000. You're like, no, right? He goes back, comes back, and says, fine, I'll give you $1 million. You're like, let me think about it. Inshallah, no, but I'm telling the general, right? So when we talking about the companions of Abdullah, or when we talk about even the enemies, right? It's not that easy to actually make a judgment on them, because as I'm going to mention later on, a lot of them, when we look at them, they were elites of the Islam nations at that time, right? They were, for example, faqih, they were jurists, they were knowledgeable, they memorized the entire Quran, they were hafiz, right? So they were known as adil. Adil is someone that you can go and take to court to testify for you as a witness, as a shahid, right? So they were known as adil. Shamr ibn Zamjoshan, rahmatullah, he was known as adil. So people would actually refer him in court in order to get their witnesses. They would say, to present your witnesses, they would say, here's my witness. And he was known as adil. It's a different thing. Sometimes you announce yourself as adil, right? Sometimes people actually know you as adil. It's two different things, right? Okay? The very same person got a hit on the Battle of Siffin. He was fighting alongside of Amir al-Mu'mineen, right? So when you look at their background, we see that they're not just any random person coming out of the blue and then decided to take out on whatever they have done. This is what I'm saying, that when we want to go into the analysis of the person, of getting to know these specific characters, we have to always have this in mind, that if I were in his shoes, what would have happened to me? That's why they say always be scared and be careful about how God is going to test us. You never know how it's going to hit you, from which angle, right, from which thing, and it's usually the stuff that you like the most. Some people have this thirst for example, money. And I actually have met a couple of people like this one. They came up to one of them actually came up to me and says, Shaykh, this is my problem. I cannot give away money. And he said, I have so much of it, right? He told me exactly the same thing. He said, I have so much of it that I don't know what to do with it. But when it comes to, for example, to help another brother to give sadaqah, to do anything, my hand shakes. I cannot give even a single penny. What should I do, right? So this is some of the characters, right? So some people like, for example, the wealth. They like to see this account, these digits going up. It's all digits, right? But it gives you power to buy, right? Some people, they like, for example, fame. They like to be very famous, right? They like to be known in the public. They like to become a celebrity. They like to become something, as they call it, like a role model within all the people, right? Some others, no, they go for the knowledge. How are you? Good? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala
Muhammad. A little forward, please. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
salawat. So different people, different characters, different interests, and it's usually those interests that you get tested on, right? It's always the thing that you like the most. For some people, you have seen it, it's their car. And when I say their car, I mean, when we learn Arabic, one of the ways we actually get to understand what were the meanings of the words, they give us all these poems that, for example, the Arabs of those time, 1400 years ago, used to recite. Because, meanings of the words changes over time, over years. So in order to understand the true meanings of the Quran, for example, a lot of times we have to go back and picture ourselves in that time to understand what they meant by saying, for example, a specific word, right? So we read a lot of poetry from the time of ignorance time. And it's interesting, one of the major hits that they talk about is their horses, right? They talk about, they have like this long poetry just talking about the neck of a horse, or like a horseshoe of of a horse, or I don't know, about the eyes of a horse, right? So, and if you want to make that comparison to our time, it will probably more likely will be about the cars, right? So some people actually like the cars a lot, and you can see that as well. They clean it every day, they make sure it's shiny, it's clean, it's neat, right? No one else can drive it, right? Oh, if you look, if you slam the door a little bit hard, you're gonna get you're gonna be punished for a couple of days, right? So sometimes the simple thing. There's a very story, it's interesting. It's about this guy who actually liked this object. It was, I forgot what was the object, but something like material. It wasn't something big and like very expensive. Imagine if you liked a cell phone or something like that, right? Like a phone, like a very old phone. And then what happens when he's about to pass away? It's one of the mustahabas to do what? To the person who's passing away, to recite him, to tell him to repeat after you the shahadatain. Say the talqeen. Say ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. So his relatives, they were all close to him, and they were telling him this talqeen to repeat after us. They were trying to dictate to him to repeat after us these sentences. He wouldn't say it, right? So they brought one of these like a little bit elite members, one of these great scholars. Is like, this is the case. We know he's a mu'min, right? But he's not saying the talqeen. He comes up, he takes a look at him. He's like, it's because he's seeing the shaitan standing in the corner. And he's telling him, if you say that, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, I'm going to break this phone, right? Something as simple as, for example, a phone. I think it was a vase or something. I remember it was a very small object, right? So it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be something very big. It could be something that's very dear to you, right? And we know that if you even put all of this aside, if you detach yourself from all of this stuff, there's one thing that remains, right? Which they say is one of those last things that is very hard to give up. It's the topic of hubbun nafs, right? The very same soul that we talk about, right? It has have a very good attachment to it. Not a lot of people like to give up their life that easy, right? And actually, it's haram, through the fiqh point. It's haram to put yourself in a situation that you're most likely you're going to get killed, right? It's haram to do suicide. Not only that, but if you see a situation and then you see if you go into that situation, you're most likely you're going to get killed. It's haram to go there, right? So that's a fiqh point. So now here comes the question. So what happened to the movement of Ashura, right? Because Imam was saying, very in the beginning, he was saying that I'm going towards the end. There is no coming back. There is no return. Whoever wants to come with me, they have to be able to actually, give away whatever they have. Like, if I'm not mistaken. Meaning to give away, their souls, their belongings, whatever they have. They just have to come out clean. So inshallah, I'll get to that as well. Recite a salawat again. So, we said people get categorized to three different groups, right? The first group are those who actually accept the haq, the truth, the reality once it gets projected to them, right? We have a lot of examples. I'm going to talk about this group at the end because they're, what we call they're the top ones. Let's talk about those who actually become neutral. They don't join. They don't say we reject the haq. They don't say we accept the haq. But they don't take any position between the two. With this, prerequisite that they actually understand what the truth is. And when we look at this tragedy of Karbala, we see that the majority of people actually fall in this third category, right?
More dangerous.
It is more dangerous, in some cases, right? So the first thing that we look at is like it's good because they actually acknowledge the truth. It's not that they don't understand it; they realize it, right? So that's good. But when it comes to action, right, that's when they stay neutral. So we have a lot of different examples, right? And I start with those who are actually were close to Abu Abdullah Hussein, right? So a lot of times in the month of Moharram, they recite the Roza, the Zikr Musibah of some of the servants of Abu Abdullah, some of the slaves, right? For example, Joan is one. Now interesting, Abu Abdullah has another slave, right? And he comes with Abu Abdullah from Medina to Mecca, from Mecca to all the way to Karbala. He's there all the 10 days. After, on the eve of Ashura, he actually gets arrested, right? For the whole time, he's just standing in the tent. He doesn't come out, he doesn't do anything, right? He's just standing in the tent. At the eve of Ashura, when they actually attack the tents of the women and children, they capture him and they take him to Umar Asad. They say, we found one guy, remaining of the caravan of Imam Hussein. He looks at him, he's like, what's your business? Who are you? Like, who do you belong to? He's like, I'm a servant of Abu Abdullah, but I did not do a single thing in support of Imam Hussein. And as a proof, it's like you did not see me even once in the battle of Karbala. You did not even see me once coming out of my tent. Umar Asad asked around because they have reporters, right? He asked around, he's like, no, we have not seen this guy. He's like, okay, let him go. So he goes and he actually becomes one of the historians, if you want to call, that he actually reports the tragedy of Karbala. So a lot of hadiths we have, it goes back to him. So this is one guy, right? There is another guy who's more interesting. We started Salawat again. On the night of, I think, Tasu'a, or even night before that, right? Umar Asad wants to send a message to Abu Abdullah Hussein. Usually they don't come themselves, they send a messenger, right? So this one, actually the narrative is Habib ibn Mudahir. He was the guard of, the tent of Abu Abdullah. He was sitting there, he wouldn't don't let anybody come in. And there are other reasons to it as well. So at night, he spots somebody coming in with the sword and heavily loaded, and he's just coming directly towards the tent of Abu Abdullah. So he calls up Imam Hussein, he says, somebody's approaching. Imam Hussein comes out, he says, do you know him, right? And Habib ibn Muzahir is from Kufa, so he knows everybody, right? He said, yes, if you ask me who's the worst people of the world, I would say it's him. It's like, okay, still let him come through, let me see what he wants to say. The guy approaches, Imam Hussein goes inside the tent, Habib comes in the middle. They do the salam and stuff. He says, what's your business here? He says, I have a message for Abu Abdullah Hussein. He's like, okay, that's fine, but if you want to go inside the tent, you have to leave your sword here and then go inside, deliver your message, give a message, and then go back. He's like, no, I will never leave down my sword. He's like, if you're not going to leave your sword down, I'm not going to let you in. It's like, well, give me another option. He's like, you can go in, I'll come with you, I'll stand on your right side, I have my hand over the handle of your sword, the whole entire time. You go inside, tell your message, we both come out. It's like, this sword you see here, no one has dared to lay hand on it up to now. Then Habib turns around and says, you see this line over here, no one has dared to pass this line as long as I'm living, right? So basically they don't come up to an agreement, he goes back. The second person comes in. Again, Imam Hussein asks Habib, do you know him? He's like, yes, I know him. He's a good guy. He has a good heart. It's like, okay, let him come in. So he comes up, again, Habib comes in the middle. It's like, what's your business? I'm delivering a message. He's like, okay, if you want to deliver a message, you have to put down your sword, go inside. He's like, okay. He puts his sword. He acknowledges, he accepts. He goes in, gives a message, he comes out. When he's about to pick up his sword, Habib calls him and says, you know me, and I know you. You know me that I do not take a side without a reason. And you know that whichever side I pick, right, is the right side. And you know what the Umar side is doing, you know the people around him. So why are you going back to him? He turns around and says, oh Habib, I know that Umar side is up to no good. Acknowledges the truth. But then he makes a justification, says, I'm just a messenger, right? I have to take this message to Umar side. With one simple excuse, he goes back and then he runs away, right? He doesn't want to stay there. He runs away, he flees the scene. And you have so many of these cases, right? Especially from the side of the enemy. Imagine 30,000 people. It was a lot easier to actually get away from that army, comparing to, the 72 people or 100 people that we have on this side. It would be much noticeable to, run away from a few people than a lot of people. So we have a lot of people in the groups. They would come in and they would run away. They would not join Imam Hassan. They would just run away, right? So these are just examples of those who actually stay neutral, because once you acknowledge the truth, why would you not stand up and defend it? Or we have this another person, in which Abu Abdullah sees him on the way as the caravan is going, right? They come up to this land and then they actually take a rest there. They see this tent, being close to where they were staying. Imam Hussein asks whose tent is it? They say it's for this person. Then Imam says, okay, send a message to him to come and see me. He doesn't come up, right? So what happens? Imam says, okay, let's go, we meet him. With a couple of companions, they go to his tent. They sit down, they start talking with him, and he turns out to be one of the, loyal actually companions, right? So they start talking with him. At the end, Imam Hussein tells him, bottom line, are you with us or you're against us? He says, oh, Imam Hussein, isn't it enough that I already have left Kufa, I have left my house, I have left all of the stuff behind, just not to attend in this battle, right? He says, I'm with you, my heart accepts you, I know you're saying the truth, but I cannot fight alongside of you. But I'll tell you what, you can take my horse. My horse is the fastest horse in Kufa, for example. Every time I had, chased someone with this horse, it was, all the time I was able to actually catch them. And every time I was being chased, I was able to get away. This is a very fast horse, very noble horse. Then Imam turns around and tells them, I don't want your horse, I want yourself, right? You can keep your horse with you if you're going to join me. If not, go ahead. I don't need your horse, right? Another two people, they come in. The same story happens. They don't ask them, are you guys coming with us? Or you're going, for example, a different place. They make this excuse. Oh, Imam Hussein, we have family, we have women and children waiting for us. We have to go and take care of them. So Imam says, okay, if you have to go, go, right? Another person comes in, the same story. This time what does he says? He says, oh, Imam Hussein, I have this money, like this amanat, it's been entrusted to me, I have to return it to its rightful owners, right? Makes up an excuse for responsibility, right? Imam says, okay, if you have to return the monies, go ahead, you can go ahead too, right? So all these different cases happens, right? They come in, they know the Imam, they know he's the son of the Holy Prophet, they know he's the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, they know the son of Lady Fatima al-Zahra, right? They sense that this battle is not gonna go easily, right? It's not that easy to stand up against the tyrant of the time, right? And then being so few in numbers against so many, in numbers. So they come, they acknowledge it. It's not that the information is not there, but they decide, right, to go for something else. Here comes that topic of, that testing that we were talking about. It's like a lot of people, they make different excuses, right? I guess the biggest one is Omar Assad himself on that conversation which he has with Imam Hussein one-on-one. Imam Hussein starts talking to him. He's like, why are you doing this? Because Omar Assad, he wasn't just a really a random guy. No, he wasn't. He had very actually a pious image, right? He was known as one of the faqih, right? And then he had a long beard. He had this sujood parts, everything matches this holy image in a sense, right? So he was well known as a pious person, as an ascetic person, Zahid in Kufa, right? So Imam Hussein tells him, it's like, what's going on? What's going on with you? How come you're joining, that army? So he starts making all of this excuses, well, I'm afraid of my life. If I come to your army, I'm afraid that Ubaydullah is going to kill me. Imam Hussein tells him, I'll guarantee your life, right? He says, well, my women, my family, my kids, they are in Kufa. So if I join you, Ubaydullah is going to go after them. Then Imam Hussein says, I guarantee their lives as well. What else? He's like, oh, if I join your army, Ubaydullah is going to take over my house, my land, my farm, all the stuff that I own. And Imam says, I'll give you a better one, right? And he's talking about this land which he had in Medina. Muawiyah, with his power, wanted to buy this for X amount of dinars. Imam didn't sell them because it was a very good land. He says, I'll give you that instead of all of stuff, and it's like 100 times more than what you actually have. It's like, no, I still cannot do this. That's when Imam Hussein actually, tells them, oh, Umar Asad, I'm sure that, once you go back, you're not going to have enough of the wheat, of the Ray being the city that he was, dreaming about, like, governing it. Then again, he turns around and says, what? He says, I don't want the wheat, right? Only the barley of the Ray is enough for me, right? So it's like he has this imagination, illusion, whatever you want to call it, this interest towards just governing one city. And this, because it has been going on in his head for such a long time, no matter what you offered, it's not going to, give him that break to, break away from that dream. In another incident, one of the companions of Imam Hussein goes to Umar Asad, right? He tells Imam Hussein, oh, I know him, we grew up together, we're like, like old school, like neighbor buddies. So let me go and have a, like, one-on-one talk to him. Imam Hussein said, okay, go ahead. He goes to him, he goes to his tent, and Umar Asad is sitting. Umar Asad stands up to welcome him. He says, Umar Asad says, Salam alaikum. He doesn't reply to his salam. He's like, aren't you a Muslim? I said salam, so you have to say, at least alayka salam, return the salam. It's like, you call yourself a Muslim, just straight up like that. It's like, you have this Furat here, this river of Euphrates here, and everything, everybody, all the animals, all the birds, everything you see, they come and drink from this water, and you block this water with all this like magnificence from the sons of the Prophet, from the Ahlul Bayt of the Prophet, with this question. Umar Asad says, yes, I know. Then interesting, he actually recites a hadith. He says, I know it's forbidden, I know it's haram to bother, not to kill, to bother the Ala Rasulullah, the progeny of the Holy Prophet. I know it's forbidden, right? He mentions this hadith. But then he says, but I made a deal with the blood of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salatu wasalam. You see what happens here? So then that companion comes back to Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein says, what happened? It's like, nope, it's one way, right? There is absolutely no hope in him coming back. So you see how this justification comes to play when it's, whether you're being neutral or even you actually disobey, the truth when it comes to you. So that's why I say it's very difficult once we put ourselves and want to make that judgment in a sense. It's not that easy. For example, I'll give this example quite a bit. Imagine you're out of work for 2 or 3 months. Credit card is all full out, it's maxed out, you cannot use your credit cards. Your mortgage payment is due, all of your utilities payment is due, school payment is due, right? Everything is due, is coming up. You have already borrowed some money from other people. You cannot borrow anymore, right? There's absolutely no way out of this, financial problem, right? And then, for example, all of a sudden your phone rings and you got an interview for a job. How excited you will be, right? You've been waiting for it for like 2 or 3 months. So you get all ready, you get dressed up, you go, and then once you go to interview, you find out, for example, the interviewer is a woman. The first thing she does, she comes up and she reaches to shake your hand. Simple as that. What do? 3 months you've been struggling. 3 months you've been struggling for this money to come in. Now you got this job interview and you're sure that you're going to get this job. It's something that you've been waiting for. Now all of a sudden she says, oh, hi, the way they are. She's going to say, okay, let's shake hands. What do? It's like, okay, God, pause everything. Okay, how you doing? Then continue, right? But what are we going to do with it? Similar story happened to one of the great leaders of Islam in Lebanon. And actually the person, when he had this sermon, he was giving like a public speech, and one of these Christian ladies, right, she went to this sermon just on purpose, just to make sure, to give him bad public image, right? So she goes in and she's attending, she's standing at the back of that gathering they had. Once the public speech finishes, the speaker comes down, he's about to head out. Of course, they do a handshake as they go out, right? Everybody says, Jazakallah ahsan, all the stuff that we say. He comes until the end of that gatherings. She's standing there. As he's going by, she reaches her hand to his right in the middle of everybody, right? And he's a public figure. What do you think he does? No, he says, he puts his hand, he puts it on his chest, it's like, alaikas salam, right? Something simple as that, and then he just moves on. Now in our case, maybe a little bit difficult. Yeah, just have to explain it. And actually, I think it makes a conversation, right? It's going to make your job interview even go better. It's like, wow, this guy, he has values. So he stands up, that means he's a good employee, right? We can count on him. If he says he's going to finish his job, he's going to finish it on time, right? If he's not going to like give up on one simple handshake, right? Then definitely he's going to have a good performance when he says he's going to take care of the job. So if they're a smart employee, they're going to actually, offer you the job in a sense. But when we think from our perspective, it's like, I need the money, right? And if I don't get this job, I don't know when else I'm going to find that interview. This is just one example of many, right? Let's not talk about, for example, looking at the non-mahram, let's not talk about the music, which is haram, let's not talk about all this stuff, right? And then we just go through all of this stuff on a daily basis. So then we come and we sit down and then we say, oh, this guy and this guy, he did such a horrible job. You see what I'm saying, right? So it's like, we do all this analysis in order to learn those characters, but at the same time, if you don't have this self-reflect on these characters, we're not any difference, right? So that's what they say inside of us, we have all of this, evil characters as well. We have to work on them. We have to work on them. Otherwise, what's going to happen? When the time comes, we're not going to be able to control them. And that's no joke, that's the scary part, right? So the very same question, how come the Imam of our time, Sahaba al Zaman, how come he doesn't come? How many Shias, mashallah, we have around the globe? How many? Let's say a number. 100 million is good? Let's say 60 million. Let's make it, probably more, right? I don't know what's the statistics. How many companions he needs based on the ahadith? 313, mashallah. So how come, if it's about the followers, if it's about companions, if it's about, and mashallah, everybody loves him. Can anybody say, oh no, no, everybody loves him, everybody prays for him, everybody recites dua faraj, everybody does all of this stuff. So how come he doesn't come, right? And these 313, interesting, they're not all from one specific time and one specific part of the world, right? One of them will be Prophet Jesus Christ, right? One of them. So you can see how high they are. One of them is Prophet Khidr, for example. So you see they're not 300, but you see what I'm saying, right? Of course, after that he has this different groups of executives, different groups of scholars, and the Tullabs. I'm not saying to become Talib, I'm saying, Imam Zaman has its own teams as well, right? But 313, so that's a major question. So a lot of times this question gets raised that during the occultation time, which we are in, what's our duty as a Muslim, as a follower of the school of the Ahlul Bayt, as the one that actually express our love and passion for the school of the Ahlul Bayt? What's the primary duty that we have? They say number one, and most of all, is to what? To work on yourself. To make sure you make yourself ready. You are ready to take on all of those tests that will come to you one day. And these tests are not, they're not, as I said, they're not stopping. It's coming to us every day through different means and different channels, right? And sometimes, as I say, it could be a simple handshake. Sometimes it could be like, just watching movies, because they say looking at the non-mahram is haram, right? So when you watch a movie and it has a non-mahram in it, you're technically looking at the non-mahram itself. So that makes the movie what? Haram. So you have to put it aside. So I'm not going to tell you all the different examples, right? Or the music. Music, there's always this discussion about it. Is music haram or halal, right? The music, right? We have this whole part of the book of Maqasid. And Maqasid is something that every talib who goes there, they read it for quite some time. It makes you, what they call it, like a scholar, because the text itself, it has so many ups and downs and here's and there and from different aspects. It sort of is like an exercise for the brain. In that one, we have this whole section full of ahadith that it talks about the forbiddance, the haram of buying and selling the instrument of music. Let alone music, the instrument of music, right? So we're not going to get into the music. No, if you go to the lifestyle of the Ahlul Bayt, right? Let's say we say Ahlul Bayt, they have the superior life. Meaning whatever joy we want, they know the best of it. If that's true, then if the music had any sort of benefits, they would have done, they would listen to it, they would have had like singers sing a song for them. And we know in those times they had live musicians. It's not something only for this time. No, we had in that time as well. Actually, during the time of Yazid, this is one of the signs that actually happens throughout the Islamic nations. In Medina, they had people coming out to the streets, to the alleys of Medina, and they were singing with the music and with all these rhythms, and for that time, etc. if you call it classical music, I don't know what that time was called, right? So that was one of the signs that the whole nation has been corrupted, right? When we talk about the reasons of the uprising, Imam Hussein says why? He says, I'm doing this uprising, why? To do a reformation, to do islah, right? Of what? Wasn't it before like this before? The answer is no. At the time of the Holy Prophet was there, no problem, a lot of people would listen. But after that, little by little, gradually, these values started to switch. To the point that at the time of the Yazid, when he came and when he took over the power, the Khalif of the Muslims, right? He himself, out in the public, he would do all this sins, right? He would, for example, drink alcohol. He would have all these different singers living at his palace, right? He would have all this messing around with monkeys and different animals, right? So all of this, oppressive act, but being done by the Khalif of the Muslims. That's different. Sometimes a person, does mistakes in his home, away from the public. That's something else. But sometimes you're the number one person in a society, you're a public figure, and then you start doing this stuff. What's going to happen? The entire society is going to find the justification to follow the same act, right? So it's a different pace. That's why I think I mentioned last night, Imam Hussein during the time of Muawiyah tells them, why do you want to put Yazid in charge? Let him go after whatever he wants to do. Go somewhere, give him a big mansion. He can do whatever he wants to do. Why do you want to put him in charge of all the Muslims? Because he knows once he comes in, when he has absolutely no fear of expressing, committing sin in the public, he has no boundaries, right? He's not going to stop anyone. So what's going to happen to the nations? What's going to happen to Islam? All of it is going to go away, right? So this is at least one of the reasons that Abdullah says, no, this is the case that we actually have to make an uprising. Whether we'll be killed or not, whether we'll be successful or not, we have to actually make this uprising. Sallu ala Muhammadin Now, what about the third group? The ones who actually acknowledge the haqq and they decide to obey it, they decide to follow it, they decide to accept it. The Holy Quran says, وَمَنْ يُطْعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَعَ الَّذِينَ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ وَالصِّدِّيقِينَ وَالشُّهَدَاءِ وَالصَّالِحِينَ وَحَسُنَ أُولَٰئِكَ رَفِيقًا. Verse 69 of Surah An-Nisa. And whoever obeys Allah and the Messenger, those will be with the ones upon whom Allah has bestowed favor, of the prophets, the steadfast affirmers of truth, the martyrs, and the righteous. And excellent are those as companions. So then Allah gives you the results of it in advance. It's now if you acknowledge the haqq, and if you accept it, and if you followed it, right? What's going to happen? You're going to become companions to what? Not to normal people, no. The very first one he mentions is what? Min al-Nabiyyin, the prophets. Who are the prophets? Prophets are those, selected ones by the Almighty, right? You can say that they're the closest one to God, and on top of everybody is the seal of the Prophet, like the eminence Holy Prophet, Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu Now when we talk about prophets, it's very hard to, again, discuss, different topics about them, because they have revelation. And revelation is something that, for example, in terms like me and you guys, we do not understand, we cannot taste that, we cannot understand it completely. It's a higher form of knowledge, but it's something that you have to experience in order to actually understand. We cannot just talk about it. What's Siddiqeen, right? What are the Siddiqeen? Siddiq comes from Sadaqa, right? Again, it's exaggerations of honesty. Meaning it's not only the words that are truth, but the actions are the truth. And in riwayahs, we have, of course, the perfect example of a Siddiq is Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. What Shuhada? Shuhada, usually people tend to think it means martyrs, it means shaheed. But here, very interesting point. Allah Tabatabai mentions in the Tafsir of al-Mizan that when we have the word Shuhada in the Quran, it comes from the roots of Shin, Ha, and Dal. It means those who are actually witness. Right? Doesn't mean physical witness. Remember we talk about it that, you know, if you put all these cameras and all the intentions and all the thoughts, if it's been recorded, right? So we say the Almighty actually sees all this stuff. We have these other sets of people that they actually have that power as well. And again, lots of incidents and cases in which they go to, for example, a person who's pious, and just by looking at him, they tell them, like, you know, what have you done? Or what will happen in the future, right? There's so many, not only in Islam, we have this in other faiths as well. As one of my friends had a Christian priest, we actually went to him. The minute he would look at you, he would tell you all your background, without even telling you anything. So it's common, it's not something like new to Islam, right? So this is what we call the Shahada. And then in the Riwayah, it says the perfect example, that almost that highest example of the Shahada are the Hassan wa Hussein alayhimus salam. Was-Salihin. What about Salihin? Salih is the ones who are actually worthy of being blissful, who's worthy of receiving that, you know, mercy from Allah Almighty. Remember we talked about it, that the mercy is always there, but we may actually turn our back, like, you know, towards it. Salihin are those people who are always, you know, their connection is always on, right? They're always receiving those blessings, they're always receiving those mercy, they always know what's going on, right? So inshallah we'll be part of those. And the way through it, Allah says, if you just do what? وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَالرَّسُولَ. Comes back to this ita'ah, this obedience. So there is a difference between obedience and submission, right? And I think my time is up, so inshallah I'll talk about this more, that how are these two related? Obedience and submission, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammadin. Now as we get closer to the day of Ashura, I would like to take some time and talk about some of the great companions of Abu Abdullah Hussein for tonight. Let me start with the narrative. It is from a meet that takes place between two great companions of Islam, one being Maysam ibn Ammar, and the second one being Habib ibn Muhammad. They meet each other and they both are on the horses. They get so close that the neck of the horses are side by side. So this time Habib turns around and tells Muslim, فَكَأَنِّي بِشَيْخٍ أَسْلَى زَخْمِ الْبَدْرِ يَبِيعُ الْبَطِيخِ إِنَّ دَارِ الرِّزْقِ قد صلب في حب أهل بيت نبيه ويغفر بطنه على الخشبة. As if I am seeing this old man who has like this big belly, and then in front of his head doesn't have hair. They're like a little bit joking with each other. قد صلب في حب أهل بيت نبيه. He will be crucified just out of the hub, out of the affection, out of the love and passion for the Ahl Bayt. ويغفر بطنه على الخشبة. And his stomach will be actually cut open using a sword or a stick or something. And as you all know, both of these great companions were giving this knowledge of foretelling the future, of seeing what's going to happen in the future. Then interesting, Maytham turns around and says, وَإِنِّي لَأَعْرِفُ رَجُلًا أَحْمَرَ لَهُ ذَفِيرَتَانِ يَخْرُجُ لِنُصْرَةِ بِنْتِ نَبِيِّهِ فَيُقْتَلُ وَيُجَعَلُ بِرَأْسِهِ فِي الْكُوفَةِ. He says, as if I'm seeing this very old man who has, his face is red and he has this long hairs on the side, and he actually goes out of his city to help and assist the son of the Prophet. And his head will be tossed around city by city by city, comes up to the Kufa, and even in the Kufi his head will be tossed around different people. They said this and they departed from each other. People who were there, they said, wow, we have not seen such liars than these two people. It passed by, a third person comes out named Rushayd Hajri. He says, have you seen Habib and Maysam? Those people, they say, yes, we have seen them. They were just telling a couple different lies to each other, and they went. He asked them what they have said. They tell him the story. He turns around and says, Rahimallahu Maysam. He says, may Allah have mercy on Maysam. Ansa, he forgot to mention this part. وَيُزَادُ فِي عَطَاءِ الَّذِي يَجِيءُ بِالرَّأْسِ مِئَةُ دِرْهَمٍ ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ. He forgot to mention this part, that they actually give 100 dirham more to the person who's carrying the head of Habib ibn Mudahir. This is just one incident. Let's go a little bit back, like even more. One day, the companions of Holy Prophet, they're going with the Holy Prophet, and then they see a group of kids playing around. All of a sudden, Holy Prophet goes forward. He picks one of them. He starts like petting him on his head. He sits down. He sats him on his lap. He starts petting on his head. He starts kissing his forehead. He starts being kind and nice to him. The companions say, Holy Prophet, how come, you're showing so much expression, so much emotions about this kid? The Holy Prophet turns on and says, Inni ra'ayta hadha sabi. I see this little child. Yawman yal'abu ma'al Hussein. One day he was playing around with my Hussein. وَرَأَيْتُهُ يَرْفَعُ التُّرَابَ مِنْ تَحْتِ قَدَمَيْهِ وَيَمْسَحُ بِهِ وَجْهَهُ وَأَيْنَهُ. As they were playing, I saw him. He leaned over. He picked some of the soil, some of the dust underneath the shoes of Hussein. He picked up that soil. He put it on his eyes. He put it on his head, and he kissed it. فَأَنَا أُحِبُّهُ لَأُحُبِّهِ لَوَلَدِيَ الْحُسَيْنِ. And I love him because of the love that he has for my son, Hussein. وَلَقَدْ أَخْبَرَنِي جَبْرَئِيلَ أَنَّهُ يَكُونُ مِنْ أَنصَارِهِ فِي وَقْتِ كَرْبَلَاء. And Gabriel has told me this news, that he will be among those supporters of my Hussein on the day of Karbala. This is what's happening there. Now let's go to the day of Ashura. Habib ibn Mazahir had this great friend, Muslim ibn Awsajah. They had all these great connections between each other, right? These true companions of Islam. So on the first attack that takes place, all of a sudden they attack the right wing where the Muslim ibn Awsajah is there. They say the dust comes up. Once the dust goes down, they see Muslim ibn Awsajah like laying on the ground. So Habib ibn Mazahir and Imam Hussein, they rush towards him and they catch him towards the end of the last breath of his life. The minute he opens up his eyes and he sees Habib, they start talking with each other, right? Habib says, "Oh Muslim, how such a great friend you were for me. How such a great companion you were for Imam Hussein. If it wasn't that I was sure that I'm going to join you in a short time, I would have definitely asked you to tell me if you have any last will, any last wish to actually for me to carry out." Muslim, again, with all that weaknesses, he just saves his energy and he says one sentence. He points at Abu Abdullah Hussein, says, "Oh Habib, as long as you're alive, do not take your hands off of this person." Later on, as the battle continues, we reach the time of the noon prayer. One person reminds Imam al-Hussein that, "Oh Abu Abdullah, it's the time for the noon prayer." Imam looks at the sky, says, "Indeed, it is right. Let's ask them for a break so we can actually offer our prayer." The minute Abu Abdullah Hussein says, "Let's offer our Zuhr prayer," one of those mal'uns who were close enough, he turns around and he insults Abu Abdullah Hussein. He says, "Oh Hussein, your prayer is not going to be accepted." La ilaha illallah. Habib is standing right there. The minute he says that, he turns around and says, "What are you talking about? You say the prophet, the prayer of the son of the prophet is not going to be accepted and your prayer will be?" The minute he says this, that guy charges right after Habib, chasing him with his sword. Now the history has it, the horse is coming towards Habib. Habib ibn Mazahir slaps the horse so hard that the rider falls down. As he's falling down, he asks for help. So all these group members, they come to help him. So now Habib goes to battle. He's going after him, the group is coming after Habib. A very big battle happens. Based on some reports, he kills close to 60-something people in that battle. Before they were able to take him out, by two people hitting and striking Habib at the same time, one from the front, one from the back, Habib hits, falls on the ground. As he's trying to use his sword to actually stand up again, the very same person comes out from the behind and he severs the head of Habib ibn Mazahir. He's actually the first martyr of Karbala whose head gets decapitated from his body. And then they start fighting over the head of Habib ibn Mazahir. He says, "I killed him, so I should take the prize." The other one says, "No, I killed him, then I should take the prize." They start fighting between all these 3 or 4 people, to the point that Umar Asad says, "Stop fighting. No one killed Habib ibn Mazahir by one, but it was a group effort. So take it, step at a time. For some minutes you can carry the head, for some minutes you can carry the head, for some minutes you can carry the head." And we have in a hadith, they hanged his head from a horse, And they were taking him through the tents, from one tent to another tent to another tent to another tent. This is a great companion of Habib. But la yawmka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. La yawmka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Oh Habib, where were you at the end? When Imam Hussein looked at the left, there was nobody left. He looked at his right, nobody's there. He looked at his behind and front, there are no companions, there are no Bani Hashim left. He looks at the Qatl and he says, where are you, my companions? Oh Habib, where are you, my Habib? Oh Muslim, where are you, oh my Muslim? Oh Abbas, where are you, Abbas? Oh Ali Akbar, where are you? Hal min nasirin yansurni. As he's talking to all of these dead bodies. Some people were saying that we could see the parts of the dead bodies moving as if to say, Labbaik, Labbaik ya Aba Abdullah. La ilaha illallah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Wa ala al-arwah allati hallat bi thanawik. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار فلا جعله الله آخر اللحد مني زيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن المعصومين من ذرية الحسين يا الله يا الله الرحمن الرحيم يا الله ثبت قلوبنا على دينك اتنا يا قاضي الحاجات. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to hasten the appearance of our Imam Zaman. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to give us the tawfiq and the chance to be part of his companions. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to forgive all of our past sins and our mistakes. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to have mercy on all of our past ones. Oh Allah, cure our sick ones, protect our children. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to give us the tawfiq of the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to give us the tawfiq of his intercession in the hereafter. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to put our offspring among the Abidin and the Salihin. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to continue to guide us on the Sarat al-Mustaqim. Oh Allah, we ask you humbly to put our end a very good and blessed end. Let's remember your hajat, let's remember all the mahroomeen, mahrumat, let's remember all those who are sick. Let's remember the appearance of our Imam Zaman, and let's recite the holy verse 5 times together. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء
مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی خواتین ملاقات کو جس میں ترسی تھی خواتین ملاقات کو جس میں زینب سارے اڑیا ہے زینب سارے اڑیا ہے اسی کوفہ شہر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں بہتے ہیں غم شام میں جو آنسو وہ کہاں ہے بہتے ہیں غم شام میں وہ آنسو وہ کہاں ہے محشر میں ملیں گے وہ محشر میں ملیں گے وہ تمہیں لال و گوہر میں ملتی ہی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی ہی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں بے گور و کفن بھائی بے گور و کفن بھائی ہم شیر سفر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں بہتے ہیں غم شام میں جو آنسو وہ کہاں ہے بہتے ہیں غم شام میں جو آنسو وہ کہاں ہے محشر میں ملیں گے وہ محشر میں ملیں گے وہ تمہیں لال و گوہر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں بے گور و کفن بھائی بے گور و کفن بھائی ہم شیر سفر میں ملتی ہی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں ملتی ہی نہیں کوئی مثال ایسی دہر میں
دیکھو نا ادھر بابا دیکھو نا ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دل توڑ کے رکھ دے گا وہ درد گراں ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نا ادھر بابا دیکھو نا ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے ٹوٹے ہوئے نیزے نے ڈھائی ہے جب آفت ٹوٹے ہوئے نیزے نے ڈھائی ہے جب آفت بول درد کی شدت ہے ایک پل کو نہیں رات اس درد کی شدت تو اس درد کی شدت تو چہرے پہ آیا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نا
بہت سہنا بیٹے کی جدائی کو مشکل ہے بہت سہنا جو بیت گئی مجھ پر اماں سے نہیں کہنا صابر ہے بہت لیکن صابر ہے بہت لیکن ہاں پھر بھی وہ ماں ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نہ ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے کیا تم سے کہوں بابا ایک سانس بھی مشکل ہے کیا تم سے کہوں بابا ایک سانس بھی مشکل ہے ٹوٹی ہے جان زا بس میرا وہی دل ہے یہ دل تو میرے بابا یہ دل تو میرے بابا صغرا کا مکان ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے موقع جو جل دے دے ایک لمحہ سکون پاؤں موقع جو جل دے دے ایک لمحہ سکون پاؤں چہرے کی زیارت سے محروم نہ رہ جاؤں دھندلا سا ہے ہر منظر دھندلا سا ہے ہر منظر ہر چیز دعا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نہ ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے سرور نے کہا بیٹا کیا حال ہے بتلاؤ سرور نے کہا بیٹا کیا حال ہے بتلاؤ ٹوٹ ہے کہاں برچی اس باپ کو دکھلاؤ اکبر نے کہا بابا اکبر نے کہا بابا یہ آج جہاں ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نہ ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے محسوس یہ ہوتا ہے ہر سند ہے تاریخی محسوس یہ ہوتا ہے ہر سند ہے تاریخی آتی ہے صدا مجھ کو بس رگڑنے کی آنکھوں سے میری بیٹا آنکھوں سے میری بیٹا بے نور جہاں ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نہ ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے بے ساختہ یاد آیا ہم شکل نبی اکبر بے ساختہ یاد آیا ہم شکل نبی اکبر ایک درد سا اٹھتا ہے آواز اذان سن کر لگتا ہے پسی اب تک لگتا ہے پسی اب تک سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے سینے میں سنا ہے دیکھو نہ ادھر بابا سینے میں سنا ہے یا حسین 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 یا حسین
آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں زینب کو نہ راسا یا محرم کا مہینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں ایک دن تھا کہ اس شہر کی میں کرتی تھی شاہی اور آج تباہی ایک دن تھا کہ اس شہر کی میں کرتی تھی شاہی اور آج تباہی مہر نبوت کا نگینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں کس لاش پہ روؤں کس چھوڑوں میں جاؤں برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں آباد ہوئی کرب و بلا اجڑا مدینہ برباد ہوئی میں یا حسین 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 محمد وآل محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم السلام علیکہ یا رسول اللہ السلام علیکہ یا نبی اللہ السلام علیکہ یا حبیب اللہ السلام علیکہ یا امیر المومنین و امام المتقین علی حجت اللہ السلام علیکہ یا فاطمۃ الزہراء سیدۃ نساء العالمین السلام علیکہ یا خدیجۃ الکبریٰ السلام علیکہ یا حسن المجتبیٰ السلام علی الحسین وعلی علی ابن الحسین وعلی اولاد الحسین وعلی اصحاب الحسین ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ السلام علیکہ علی ابن الحسین زین العابدین السلام علیکہ محمد ابن علی الباقر النبیین السلام علیکہ جعفر ابن محمد الصادق السلام علیکہ موسیٰ بن جعفر القادم السلام علیکہ علی بن موسیٰ رضا السلام علیکہ محمد ابن علی الجواد السلام علیکہ علی بن محمد الحادی السلام علیکہ حسن ابن علی الزکی العسکری السلام علیکہ یا صاحب عصر والزمان الامان 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 من فتنة الزمان السلام علیکہ یا خلیفۃ الرحمن السلام علیکہ یا امام الانس والجان السلام علیکہ یا شریک القرآن السلام علیکہ یا مظہر الامام السلام علیکہ امام زمان حاضر عجل اللہ فرجہ وسہل اللہ مخرجک وجہ السلام علیکم ورحمۃ اللہ وبرکاتہ
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم اللہم کل ولیک الحجت ابن الحسن صلواتک علیہ وعلا آبائہ فی هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرزقا طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا.
حسینیت زندہ حسینیت زندہ حسینیت زندہ یزیدیت مردہ یزیدیت مردہ یزیدیت مردہ نعرے